Hello, and welcome to Why I Love Warhammer. This is episode 3, which is about Chaos Space Marines. It's just an unhinged ramble about why I love something in this hobby. The Chaos Space Marines were actually my first 40k army, specifically the Night Lords. I was 13 years old. I'd gotten into the hobby through the Middle-earth strategy battle game, and my friends were starting to move in the 40k direction. And a weird group of friends at the time. We had one person who played Eldar, one guy who played Necrons, and this is back in 4th edition when Necrons were basically a monolith warrior, scarab lord, and what was then called a destroyer lord was now called the Locust Destroyer Lord, might be getting retconned out of the 10th edition Necron Codex. That's going to age this video. Necrons, Eldar, had one Tower player, who seemed to rely a bit too much on Crute and charging for an army that's meant to be long range. And we had one guy who, to this day, I cannot tell you what he played as his faction. He's probably never going to see this video, he might not even recognise me. But yeah. And I wanted a different army to all of them. And I didn't want to, but I had a few other considerations too. One was money. I was 13 years old. I was running off pocket money and birthdays and Christmases. So it couldn't be an overly expensive army. And it also, I found Tyranids a bit daunting. I've never been a great painter, but I found Tyranids would be a bit too much on the side of it's going to take a long time to paint and put down on the table. And so I was going through the codexes at the time in a Warhammer shop, and I had a few things that I didn't really click with me about how to build an army. I loved the force organization chart. At the time it was 2 HQ, 3 elites, 6 troops, 3 fast attack, 3 heavy support, and that was the limit. Minimum 1 HQ, 2 troops. Now, back then I used to call it the fully fledged army if you filled every slot in the Force Org chart. But I didn't really clock that. I also didn't really clock points. It was just a unit for each of these. But then, in the Chaos Space Marines Codex, the 3.5 Codex, as I now know it to be called, they had this bit, and it would go through all the different all the different sub-factions. The 4 for the Chaos Guards, for the Word Bearers, for the Alpha Legion, for the Iron Warriors, and the Night Lords. The Night Lords and the Iron Warriors had this really interesting thing to me, where if you had Night Lords, you could say, okay, instead of having 3 fast attack, 3 heavy support, I'm going to have 4 fast attack, but 1 heavy support. Okay. And for Iron Warriors, it was vice versa, 4 heavy support to 1 fast attack. I thought, okay, this is actually a really good way to get my fully fledged army faster. And of the 2, fast attack units, at least at the time, seemed like they were cheaper monetarily than the heavy supports. Also, Night Lords have bat wings, which I was 13 years old, didn't really get a lot of things, but I liked the bat wings. So this isn't the Chaos Lord, the Night Lord's Chaos Lord I had at the time. Basically, what happened is a few years later, when I was in my early 20s, the army got, let's call it, misplaced, and I couldn't get them anymore. I couldn't find my old models. But what I really liked with the fast attack and heavy support was that it meant I could have the bikers. I thought the bikers were neat. I've still got. I replaced the bikers. I replaced the whole army in the end, with whatever equivalents I could get to what they looked like at the time. I loved the bikers, but the one that really got me, the one that I loved. Me and my friends, we used to read the White Dwarf magazines in our school library. The library had a subscription, and if the issues were 6 months old or older, we could take them home if we got there first. The model I loved. And there are people on this website whose content I love who disagree with me on this. But I love the Chaos Defiler. I love every bit of it. This one I've tried to pseudo-magnetize a bit, and I've tried to keep the limbs movable, which I didn't do on my original Defiler. Like, I know this weapon isn't the optimal weapon choice, but I think it looks really cool. Hence why it's not, but, you know, I play the game properly now, so it's not actually glued in, it's there for magnets. But I just thought it was so cool. I used to say I wanted a Defiler. It became almost a catchphrase for me. I love it. Like, they are just insane to me. These giant robot crabs. Like, okay, anyone who ever tells you that anyone in 40k can be the good guys must not have watched enough fiction, because I defy you to find me any form of fiction where the heroes, the good guys, use a giant mechanized crab, and those guys are still the good guys come the end of the movie. Avatar, giant crabs, used by the bad guys. In, it was Pokemon Secrets of the Jungle, caught me by surprise, because it seemed like a bunch of the good guys were using a giant mechanized crab. Spoiler alert, they are not the good guys by the end of the movie. Anyway, everyone in 40k can be the bad guys. Not everyone in 40k can be the good guys. These guys are literally working with demons. And I love them for it. It's just so ludicrous. Like, lore-wise, I love the working with demons things even more now. So we take... Yeah, this is meant to be Chaos Space Marines as a whole, but it's going to be through the lens of the Night Lords, which are my favourite faction. My favourite faction of them, right? I love how... And I'm going to be very careful here with this one, because when I did replace the army, I got enough stuff in addition to the replacements to be able to play them in 30k. And so I got Comrade Kurz. I'm trying to use my phone camera so I've got a better angle and better sound quality as well, and a better picture quality than my webcam. I'm not going to show them on camera for too long because I'm really proud of my paint job on this model. But if I show them to the camera too long, then people are going to see things I've not seen about the model and where I've messed up. So I'm going to just leave him out of shot there for now. But what I love with him, right, is, and it's a common thing, and maybe I've gotten the wrong end of the stick, is he never wanted to fall to chaos. He just kind of felt like he had to. He was absolutely crazy, which is something I find really compelling. And the notion that he was happy basically being 40k's Batman, and he might have faked his death so he can return to being 40k's Batman. I think that's a really interesting plot dynamic for him. But I love how, like, other than, like, Lorgar and Horus, none of the others seemed like they necessarily wanted to fall to chaos. Magnus the Red was, lore-wise, just wanted to understand the warp, is what I'd been learning. Mortarion hated the Chaos Gods. He just liked Horus, wasn't such a fan of the Emperor. So when he came back in as this giant demon prince with these massive plague wings, I love the irony of that, because Mortarion's a really cool model. If I had the money, I definitely want to be buying a Mortarion model. I wouldn't necessarily want to go whole hog with Death Guard army, but that's more because one of the players in our group already has Death Guard army. I don't like to repeat. But then, additionally, the stuff like but sorry, I was thinking about Mortarion and got a bit distracted. Maybe Angron, who was particularly kind of, he had the butcher's nails and maybe he liked how that was, but I don't really know that much about the World Eaters at the time of recording, and I don't know that much about Angron at the time of recording, so I can't say for sure with him. But with the way that Mortarion and Magnus came back as Demon Princes, despite not necessarily being fans of Chaos themselves, I love the idea of Comrade Kurz coming back as a Demon Primarch. And so I've been trying to use the script less in these videos. I'm looking at me on the camera so I can judge where I am in the frame. But I've not written down this bit at all. This is just off the cuff. I love the idea of Comrade Kurz coming back as a Demon Primarch, because he'd hate that. And the way I'd like him to come back, to be honest, is as like a giant bat demon with a hole in the chest region that you could like physically put your pinky finger through. And in doing so, he could have rules where he can basically like buff anything that you can draw a straight line between him and that character without going through, and that friendly unit without going through terrain, and debuff any enemy model where he can draw a straight line between him and that enemy model without going through any terrain, but with no actual ability to attack, which I think would be beautiful to go from, you know, claws on your fingers, edgy Batman for 40k to can't act directly. And in the Middle-earth game, there's a rule for Tom Bombadil and Goldberry that basically says, if these are your last 2 models in play, you don't have models in play. They wander off and counter slain. Gollum has a similar rule where if the ring bearer is slain, and therefore and Gollum's in play, Gollum steals the ring, scampers off, counts as slain. I'd want something similar for, you know, Demon Primarch Conrad Kurz, where if he's your last model standing, he slinks off, counter slain. It's why whenever you get videos where people say, oh, what Primarch do you want to return next? I don't actually say Conrad Kurz, I say Sanguinius, because then that opens the floodgates for dead Primarch returns, and Conrad Kurz all but confirmed dead. I want it to come back, but I don't want the heat to be on, why is Conrad Kurz coming back, the dead one? I want the heat to go on someone else, like Sanguinius or Ferrus Manus, or even Horus. And then once that Overton window's been shifted, then Conrad Kurz comes back. Because I'd love to have Conrad Kurz in 40k. I'd drop everything to get Conrad Kurz. You can't legally sell a kidney in this country, in the UK, but I would sell a lot of valuable stuff. I would sell a lot of stuff that I wouldn't previously have considered selling to get a Conrad Kurz model. But I also love how, going back to the stuff I'd written down to talk about in the video about why I love Chaos Space Marines, I love how there's also stipulations about like becoming a demon prince if you don't quite do it right. But also lore-wise, I know I said that I couldn't call Chaos Space Marines the good guys of 40k, but they are the rebels, and I've always got a bit of sympathy with the rebels in fiction. Like, you can't really tell me that like the rebels in Star Wars, we follow their story. We're not really following the story of, you know, Empire Officer 2681. We don't follow the Secretary of Mordor. We're following people who are trying to fight against the oppressive group, and the Imperium are kind of oppressive and impressive, but oppressive too. And these guys are the rebels against that, and that's a lot of fun too. Another thing that's a lot of fun with them, they're spiky. I got the Rhino out to demonstrate the point. With all these spikes, and what's cool with spikes is it changes the silhouette a bit, but also you can put stuff on them. So like this one here, it's got like a little Space Marine helmet, which I painted Blood Angels. I painted that helmet to be Blood Angels because one of the players in our group was playing Blood Angels for a long time, and basically whenever I paint a Space Marine helmet onto a model that has like a Space Marine helmet as like loose debris, and this like Conrad Kurz, where that's where I placed the Conrad Kurz model, where like referencing the art on the website, it's an Iron Hands guy. I usually paint those like random dead Space Marines to be in the colours of whichever Space Marine chapter has most recently beaten me. I paint them out of salt. At that time, Blood Angels were the ones who most recently beat me. I painted it as a Blood Angel. But you can get some with like Necron heads and Tau heads, and I just find it really fun to just kind of have that little dabble into painting another faction. Even one that you might not necessarily want to play as longer term, just fun to give it a go. But it also does make the silhouettes unique. And talking of silhouettes, Abaddon the Despoiler, right? I don't own the model, but that guy is distinctive. He's got the big claw with the really long blade. He's got the fur. He has the spikes in his headrest with stuff on them. Like, even if you didn't know anything about Warhammer, you didn't know anything about the lore, and you saw a bunch of silhouettes lined up, you could tell that the silhouette for Abaddon the Despoiler would be a really distinctive silhouette. Similarly, like, Night Lords with the bat wings, you can tell they're different to the regular ones. And so between that unique war gear they've got, it really adds to the silhouette, and it really makes it special. The other thing I like is being able to soup in all the different allies. Like, I talked about Chaos Knight on this channel before. Being able to put one of them in is really awesome. But demons have a unique silhouette, right? Being able to line up your force, and you've got, say, Abaddon the Despoiler, a bunch of regular Chaos Marines, some Nurglings, some Demonettes of Slanesh, a couple of Bloodletters, and some Screamers and Flamers, and a Beast of Nurgle. They look really different to each other, and that's really fun. And and you get such variety in your force. As much as I'm going to be doing an episode about Space Marines, well, specific Space Marine factions at some point on this channel, right? At a glance, the difference between an intercessor and an aggressor and stuff like that, a lot of the Space Marine units do look kind of similar. At least at first glance. Once you start looking into them, of course, then you start seeing the differences, and then it becomes obvious. But you don't really. But with Chaos Allies, you don't get that so much. But the other thing with Chaos Allies that I think is really awesome is being able to soup in other bits. So, I could, with my Night Lords, stick in a single unit of Death Guard, and that's a good ally. Or Noise Marines. I managed to get a pre-owned copy and then painted it myself of that classic Noise Marine, and I really hope that if they do a full Slanesh Chaos Space Marines Codex, with Demon Fulgrim and stuff, that we'll start able to buy these guys in boxes of 5, 10, or 20 even. I wish you could buy them in 20s, but because I think it'd be really good to have like a bunch of people with a bunch of Marines on the table, all with these electric guitars. That in the kind of that theatre of the mind aspect of it, of this 20-man guitar solo where the guitars are guns. That's really cool imagery. Also, Noise Marines and the Night Lords who use screeching and sounds to mess with their opponents. I appreciate there's a link there, but I still think it's cool. But what's really cool with this one is that he plays the music. I'm gonna try and pop him there. Good, he's still in frame. You can tell I've not really rehearsed this. But you combine that with other models. Here's the Goth Rocker from a couple of Christmases ago. And then what I did was I got the in the Space Marine bike kit where you've got the sidecar. I got the sidecar, just the Marine. I bought him. Then I got I found this. I took a single little piece of sprue and the spun and a small piece of sponge from the packing foam I have in my crate. I took I snipped a bit off a safety pin, and then I found this website, I can't remember who they are now, otherwise we'd definitely give them a shout out, who could do like metal components, and they had a drum kit. So now I have a band. And for the record, I said I'm not a great painter. He's meant to have a Necron anchor on that shoulder, and that green abomination is meant to be the Tyrannid symbol. So it's kind of this band who are unifying the races of 40k. I just loved the idea behind that, and I thought that, and really the inspiration for that came from the Noise Marine. I love the kind of, I think really that's what this comes down to, is I love the kind of inspiration that you get from Chaos Space Marines. as much as they're not the army I chose to lead this channel off with, and they are, to me at least, the most like genuinely inspirational army as a hobbyist to play with. I think that's about all I've got to say on the Chaos Space Marines, at least for now. If you want to comment down below, I mean, anything helps the algorithm, but if you want to comment down below specifically which factions or which particular models or which bit of this hobby you found to be like the greatest hobby inspiration, be really cool. I'd love to read them. And similarly, if you do YouTube pleasantries, the liking, subscribing, the links in the below, that would be really nice as well, really useful. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Cheers.